Warning! This video about Persona 5 contains the most spoilerific spoilers since Spoiler Man came to Spoiler Town. Be spoiled at your own risk. Seriously, I am about to spoil a lot about Persona 5. If you're not ready to be spoiled, I'll forgive you if you just want to leave. Okay? It's spoiler time. Spoilers. Marvelous hello, friends and loved ones, how are you today? So, today's video is going to be a bit of a weird one. I just want to talk about something Persona 5 did that I think was really smart on Atlus's part, and what this one little decision could potentially mean for the future of all things Persona 5 related. If you've played the first 15 minutes of Persona 5, you know that Joker gets captured by the police and spends most of the game recollecting the past 7 months or so through testimony to a prosecutor. Before getting dragged into the interrogation room, he's told by one of the cops that captures him that one of his teammates sold him out. This leaves us spending the entire game asking ourselves who, just who, could the traitor possibly be? Could it be your best friend from the very beginning, Ryuji Sakamoto? Could it be the younger sister of the prosecutor currently interrogating you, Makoto Nijima? Could it be this guy? Or maybe, just maybe, it's the charismatic pretty boy who spends most of his time on screen saying he wants to take down the Phantom Thieves, essentially blackmails your group into bringing him along in a heist, and even dictates the exact date your final move will happen, giving him a complete upper hand in any upcoming events. Nah, I still think it's this guy. All jokes aside, if you're paying attention at all, yes, Goro Akechi is the one who betrays your group. However, what I found interesting about this is while it is a pretty big spoiler to just say that, the game itself isn't really trying to hide it. Akechi being the traitor isn't treated as some big twist. It's what comes later and why it's happened that's the real twist. Akechi also having the power of the wild card, Akechi actually being Shido's son. These are all extra details that add more to the mysteries of Persona 5. But they're not what I'm here to talk about. No, what I'm here to talk about today is something very simple. Akechi's death. And mind you, I am putting the largest, most sarcastic finger quotes around the word death that I possibly can. And yet, that's why I think Atlus was so smart here. You have two back-to-back boss battles against Akechi in the 7th palace of the game. The first is a pretty quick and simple ordeal. He looks how he did as your teammate Crow and uses Robin Hood, the persona we were already familiar with him having. His second phase puts him in his crazy black outfit that had been hinted at since the 2nd palace of the game, and he suddenly reveals his ultimate persona, Loki. As an off note, I love they decided to do this with him. Even without him being a party member, Akechi gets to keep the persona theme in this game of going from a fictional or historical trickster to a more powerful mythological one. It made for a pretty sweet boss fight, all things considered. Unable to win against the Phantom Thieves, Akechi feels as though he is a failure, and upon coming face to face with the cognitive version of himself created by his father Shido, Akechi barricades himself away from the Phantom Thieves, we hear a few gunshots, and Futaba tells us his signal is gone. I have a general rule when it comes to stuff like this that unless I see the death for myself, I don't think it actually happened. As soon as that moment happened, I expected he'd be back towards the end of the game in some capacity. Except, he wasn't. As far as I know, he doesn't reappear at all, and nobody really mentions him all that much either. And that's where I think the brilliance lies with how Atlus handled this. As of right now, for all intents and purposes, Goro Akechi is dead. And all things considered, he had a pretty good death scene in the game, wrapping up what had been a slow-building story arc for the character. But by having it off-screen, Atlus gave us something they didn't have to give us. Doubt. I don't know about you all, but I personally doubt that Akechi is dead. I wouldn't have that doubt if he'd had some on-the-ground, slow-building death where he lamented on his actions before closing his eyes for the final time. No. We got some off-screen gunshots, and Futaba, who is great by the way, told us she can't sense him anymore, and as great as Futaba may be, I'm sure she'd forgive me for thinking that a wildcard user capable of wielding Loki, one of the most manipulative and deceptive trickster gods in all of mythology, could find a way to hide himself from her radar. By handling his death the way that they did, they've given him a conclusion in the story of Persona 5, while simultaneously leaving the door open for him to return in one of the inevitable Persona 5 spin-off games. And trust me, some of those are going to happen. In case you missed it, Atlus has already registered domain names for P5U, P5D, P5R, P5Q2, and P5AG. So in other words, Atlus basically wrote a death scene intentionally tailored to where they could easily go, "Gotcha, he's still alive," down the road. Obviously, they're not the first people to ever do something like this, but I think it was smart of them to have this level of forethought. One of my favorite things about the Persona series is that every single game is connected. Persona 5 is just as much a part of the world and timeline of Persona 1, so I applaud Atlus for leaving this opportunity open for themselves. It'd be pretty hard to explain Akechi's return if we'd seen him die on screen and they'd made a big fuss about it, but by having it be quick, somber, off-screen, yet still satisfying, from a writing standpoint, their options are pretty open right now. Whether this was always the idea for wrapping up the character, or perhaps a very late game change on Atlus's part after it was revealed in a popularity poll that Akechi is literally the most popular character in Japan. Seriously, Japan likes this dude more than Joker. I'm glad they handled it the way that they did, and I look forward to seeing what they have planned for any future installments. Katsura Hashino, the director of Personas 3, 4, and 5, recently announced that Persona 5 would be the last Persona game he directs for the company. And while I already expected any Persona 5 spin-offs to be handled by other Atlus team members, much like the Persona 4 ones were, Persona 5 felt like a great send-off for his time in the director's chair. So now, while we wait for the series to be potentially revitalized in ways we can't even begin to imagine with some new director handling Persona 6, we can look forward to a couple of Persona 5 spin-offs in the meantime, some of which might be announced around the big Persona concert event they've got planned for this August. And as I've expressed throughout this video, I'm sure we haven't seen the last of the traitor to the Phantom Thieves, Goro Akechi, or his stupid sweater vest. Okay, maybe we have seen the last of the sweater vest.